All right, boys and girls, so here's some more of me testing out the materials. Now I went through and I did a test sheet for all the colored pencils. So the black and the gray, I don't really, black is not dark and the gray are basically almost the same value. The white actually lightens other colors. I'll get into some colored pencil technique maybe later in the year. By far the colored pencils probably are one of the better products besides my crayons. Actually I was pretty good at. The crayons weren't too bad. The markers aren't too bad. Color pencils, they're kind of light. I like something a little darker. As a comparison, these Prismacolors that I usually use in my art room are actually darker. Like, check this red out. If you compare it to this red, this is a much more vibrant red. You can see it's like night and day here, people. More pigment, or even let's say you might say, oh well, that's a dark, just a darker color. What about like blue, like the sky blue, moonlight blue? There's definitely more pigment, the stuff that makes the color. But they're okay. They'll work for what we're doing. I usually, again, I don't like to use colored pencils with children because, and nothing against you guys, but it's color pencils are for doing like little fine details. So if I was doing like a picture and I wanted to do something really thin, like outline something, I would use a color pencil. Otherwise, I would use art sticks, which is why I keep them in my room for my students to use. But not terrible, and you have a wide selection of colors. You have more of these colored pencils than I have art sticks. You even have silver and gold, which is kind of nice. This is a nice thing to have. Not gonna lie. So this is what they look like. I would recommend take a sheet in your sketchbook, draw a bunch of squares, test out your materials. Draw something like this where you test out your crayons, test out your markers, test out your colored pencils. So you have these, what we call swatches. So when you go later and you want to do something with your artwork. Now we're going to test big money products. I also cut a sliver of paper. I didn't want to put a wet piece of paper in here, but I want to see how this sketch paper holds up to this paint. I'm not going to paint on construction paper. I normally don't do that. That's, if I'm doing anything on construction paper with paint, I'm doing tempera paint, which is different. Watercolor paints tend to be transparent. That means you can see through them. So we're going to test some of these colors. I want to know what these colors are. This is actual watercolor paper, like something that I had laying around. I started using this thing, but it's so tiny. It's teeny tiny. I thought, you know what, I'm going to get some extra water for cleaning purposes. So I'm just going to do swatches of each color. So I have no idea what this color is. Thinking of brown? Yeah, it's a brown. Normally, I would never get a brown for the kids. I would make them, I would make my students make brown. As anybody who's in my older grades know, and I tell you how to do that. It's an important skill. This paint is not terrible. It's pretty good, okay? Of course, I'm using this paint on watercolor paper. Watercolor paper is pretty thick. This red is so light. I wonder if I use less water and twirl. And notice, boys and girls, I twirl. The ballerina dances on her tippy toes. No matter how much pigment I use, it's still very light. And you're like, well, that looks good to me. I'm going to show you a comparison. Here's the orange. Not excited. This is not yellow. Okay, it is. I stand corrected. This is your yellow. It's okay. I don't know who does these colors. Is this blue again? Do we have 2 blues? Actually, I like this blue. This would be good for making green. That's probably one of the most vibrant colors in the pack. This is green. Why do we have to make green? That is green. And what's this? Okay, so they give you 2 greens. So no black and 2 greens. Okay. So why don't we compare these to something that I would set up? If I'm setting something up in class, this is what Miss M makes everybody use because I'm a horrible person. No, I mean, I want you to learn how to make your own colors. So I usually have a magenta. I mean, just look right off the bat. Boom. That's Better Pigment. Better Pictures brought to you by Better Pigment. Better Paints. There's yellow. I'm not going to do both yellows, and this one's kind of cruddy, but even this cruddy paint, this dirty paint that my students dirtied up, or maybe I did, who knows? Even this dirty paint is brighter than the brand new set. So, and usually I'm not offended that there's no black, okay? Because I would get rid of the brown. But what happens is, okay, so you have to make a purple. You're going to have a rough time making a purple with these colors because you're missing this magenta color. This magenta color is specifically in there to make purple. You're like, what are you talking about, Miss Em? You must have lost your mind. No, my mind is fine. Trust me. Watch. You take magenta and you mix it with this. This is a violet blue. I have 3 blues because I'm crazy. No, because I specifically put together things for making colors with my students. And that, my friend, is how you make a purple. Boom, just like that. And I can do different levels of purple. I also prefer to have my students make a green, for example. Look, there's brown right there. I made brown, or one of my students, I don't even know. Doesn't even matter. But my kids know how to make a brown. My kids know how to make a purple. So I take some of that blue. I have this disgusting yellow, but when I mix it with the blue, bammo, that's an awesome green. I do like this green, but you can see I can make a purple. Now, can I make a purple with this set? I don't need to make a green because they have greens. But can I make a nice purple with this set? Maybe if I take some blue. I'm not a fan of this container either. And I mix it with some red. Do I get a purple? That didn't mix well. Maybe I should take the red. Do me a favor, boys and girls, don't ever mix in the pan here. You can mix on the top. These colors are not working. There we go. There. This is going to be purple, right? Okay. You're like, I don't see the difference. Yeah, now oh, look. Now I see the difference, huge difference. And if you're actually here in real life, you'd see that it's like sad. So it's okay. Like I said, I will make sure I use these colors for doing demos. If by some miracle you happen to have a nicer set of watercolors, you may want to consider using that. These are not my fab fave, but it'll work. It'll work. That's what I keep telling myself. It will work. All right. That's everything. So here's I wanted to test the paper. So this is the paper that comes with the set. This is our sketch paper. What if I want to paint on it? So, we're going to do a project. We're going to paint something with on our paper. Okay, I'm going to paint something. How does this paper hold up? One of the things that happens, especially with my younger students, and you may have had this problem, the more water you put on, the flimsier the paper gets. And you can see that there is, see all those little dots? That's the paper kind of coming apart. So I would have to stop here. You can only put so many layers on, and the paper is starting to wrinkle. Normally, sometimes when I do special projects, I'll use actual watercolor paper, but I normally use this type of paper. I ordered tons of it. I have a closet full. And this is what my students work on. So if we do paint and we're not doing a special project, I will paint on this paper. I do like this. I like this turquoise. And you can see already this paper holds up a lot better. I just made a mess. So when you compare this to this, you can see there's a lot more of these little dots. That's the paper coming apart as opposed to this one. This paper holds up better. It's like a 90-pound paper. This is definitely not, you can see through this. So I need to keep this in mind when I create my projects, knowing how elementary students use materials. Nothing against you, part of the process. Nothing against my elementary students. I love them to bits. But they are hard on materials. Not gonna lie. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's part of the process of growing and learning. I have to keep in mind, what am I going to do with these things and how am I going to utilize the paint in a project? All right, boys and girls, that's about it. That's the K through second.